vines. I think this is the best turnout that I can remember for this particular class. Used to be everyone kind of thought of vines as those things that you see in English gardens growing over an arbor, right? Well, they're actually one of the most useful things that you can have in your yard, and because of the type of hardscaping that is being done nowadays, you're going to find that it's one of the most important that you can have. So up here I've got a variety of ground covers and vines, and they all work a little bit differently. So we're going to talk about how they can be used, how to decide which one is best for your situation. So basically what happens is today, there used to be, everybody had lawns. Remember that? Everybody had a lawn. And you were out there every Saturday mowing, kind of like someone is right over there across the fence. And nobody does that anymore. And so what's happened is the lawns have been replaced by gravel. And we have replaced the fences with block walls, and our wood siding on our houses has been replaced by stucco. So what happens when you walk into your backyard? I think all of you know what happens. You walk into the backyard. Yeah, I guess someone's going, oh my goodness, yes. You feel like you walked into a stone oven. Quite literally, that's what you've done. You just walked into a stone oven. Stone on all sides of you. It is hot. It is so hot. We used to talk about heat islands, you know, as cities would pave over more streets and create more sidewalks and create heat islands. Well, that effect happens even faster now, because not only do we have pavement on the street and the sidewalk, but it's in the yards now too. We have the gravel and the stucco and the block walls. So everything, more area is now paved over or covered in some kind of stone. So it's getting hot. Probably noticed these past few summers have been hotter than normal for Preston, and it's just getting hotter. But you can actually counter that with plants. Nothing cools the yard and the house down better than plants. Any plant. The more plants you have, the better.
Or trees.
Or including trees. Including trees. If you've got a big shade tree, I recommend to everybody put a big fast-growing tree in your yard. It's going to grow, it's going to shade the yard, it's going to shade the house. You'll see your electric bill drop like you would not believe, because you're not running the AC the way you used to. And you'll find that you can turn it on and it doesn't have trouble keeping up. Vines and ground covers, they also make a huge difference in the yard. I don't know when the last time was that you walked onto a lawn, but have you noticed you walk onto a lawn or into a place where there's a lot of trees and the temperature just drops 10 degrees just like that? It's amazing. So vines and ground covers, because they cover so much surface area, they're so effective. Like I was saying earlier, for most of you, you no longer have a fence, you have a block wall. A lot of you are in new houses. They were all built with block walls. And those block walls just reflect heat right into the yard. It is hot. So you can actually cover over those block walls with vines, creepers that will climb up, and just stop the sun from being able to get to the wall and then reflect back into the yard, back at you, back at everything in the yard. I know a lot of you have started installing either a small patch of lawn or some astroturf, just so that the dogs can go outside and not burn their paws. That's how bad it's getting. So this is how we can cool down the yard using natural plant life. The ground covers, they cover over the ground, over that gravel, again, just stopping that heat effect that where it's reflecting and radiating from the gravel. A lot of you have, say, decorative mounds, especially in Prescott Valley. Some of you are from Prescott Valley. Decorative mounds became very popular in Prescott Valley. They look great with ground covers growing over. For the mounds, I recommend some of the lower growing types. Some of the ones that really hug the ground. They look really great on those mounds. Like this one right here is a type of cotoneaster. This is the one that looks like cotton Easter, the way it's spelled. It's actually cotoneaster. There's a few different types. This is one of them, and you can see it. It's a hugger. It's hugging its own pot right now. You can see it. It really hugs the ground, stays real low. This particular kind is Shrubs. This one is called Streets. These are great for those decorative mounds. Here's some more. This one is a Japanese juniper, another real low-growing ground cover. Just looks great on those decorative mounds. If you got some areas like riprap, which pretty much all of us do, because we're in hilly areas, just the nature of being in the mountains. Even Prescott Valley is still a very hilly area, so we tend to have a lot of riprap and supporting walls. So when you get into that, I like to go with something a little bit thicker. This here is again another type of cotoneaster, but you can see this one gets a little thicker. This one's called Eichholz. It's about a foot tall. I really like to see these on areas where you've got a real chunky riprap. It just looks nicer. Otherwise, the huggers, they can get a little bit lost on the rock. You don't see them as much. These can really cover over that rock, really stop the sun from getting to it and reflecting back at the house. The cotoneasters all get these red berries. You can see it's got red berries. It's got little white flowers in the spring, turns to red berries in the late summer. Very fast growers. That's the great thing about both ground covers and vines. Very fast growers in almost all cases. Very, very fast. So these, they can spread. Usually your ground covers will give you at least 8 feet of spread. So really, really great.
That spreads really well. We have 3 of them that just come from.
Yes, they do. They spread wonderfully. Cotoneaster is great for this. Easy care. Ground covers, the nice thing about ground covers, they shade their own soil above their roots. So after they've started spreading out, you'll find that they don't have to be watered frequently. It's very easy to overwater, in fact. And it's because they're shading that soil around their own roots. So the evaporation is slowed down. And it just keeps the yard from getting nearly as hot. How you doing?
Will those grow under a big juniper in the hard shade? Or?
Will these grow under a big juniper? Probably. Got a little something on me. So, if it's really shady, most of the time when you're just getting under a tree, you're still getting filtered light through it, and you can plant just about anything. But if it's really shady, there are some plants that specifically do great in shade. So I've got a couple here. This one's Lithidora, has very dark green leaves and a very blue little flower all over it. It's not in bloom right now, but earlier this thing was just covered with blue flowers. Very, very blue. You know, it's very hard to find blue flowers. This one is very blue, like delphinium, that blue. Yeah, very blue. This one's Pachysandra. I really like these. These are really pretty. They look so gorgeous cascading. If you've got like a low wall or something, these look so pretty the way they cascade over a wall or over a little rock wall. It looks so great. This one, be careful about that. This one is probably one you're all familiar with. One of the members of this family tend to be very common in this area. This is Vinca. And this is one of those things that you just kind of plant, get it established, and then let it go. Doesn't really need any care after that. It takes good care of itself. It's a super fast grower. It'll grow both by above ground runners as well as root runners. And it'll just grow and spread, and in the shade it just never needs care if it's in the ground. They can actually take a little bit of sun, but they'll need more regular watering if you put them in the sun. You'll see a version of this with larger leaves, very common here in the Prescott area, especially in the older homes. Got very popular, and it's just wonderful because you don't have to take care of it. Yes? How do these do in the snow and the higher altitudes? This one will go dormant. Some of these are actually evergreen or semi-evergreen, and these do great in our cold climate. Here in Prescott, it can get pretty cold. And Prescott has a lot of different elevations. We kind of range anywhere between 52 to 64 from one side of the city to the other, and you're in the 64 range. So it gets cold, but we're kind of used to that. I would say there's just a couple of things like the rosemary. Get it in now, let it kind of establish its roots. Use a bigger root ball if it's getting really close to winter. That way you have a bigger root ball to start with if you're going to do that. Put that in either earlier or bigger. That way it has a little more time before the cold hits. Otherwise, the rest of these are pretty good. Fall is a wonderful time to plant. I cannot stress that enough. The vines are going to spend the fall and the winter just building up their root system. That is so important for the ground covers to do their work next summer. If you can get them in now, because they're always going to spend some time at first just building up the root system and getting established. And so you'll see that at first they don't seem to grow quite as fast as you had hoped, especially if you start with small pots like this, stuff like this, real small pots. You start with these, you'll notice they're real slow at first, and then all of a sudden you'll see this explosion of growth, and it's because they've established that root system now. Once they've got that down, oh my goodness, you can't stop them. They will grow faster than anything you imagine. So you'll see if you start with small pots like this, they'll grow, but they won't. You'll see these tendrils. They'll get pretty long, but you'll see that this plant really isn't thick enough to really cover a wall. If you were to have this growing on a trellis, it just isn't that impressive quite yet. If you start with a bigger root ball, like one of these, this is a 5-gallon. You start with something like this, you won't be waiting. You will not be waiting because it's already got a bigger root system. And when they're big like this, especially when they've been in the ground for a while and they've had time to establish themselves, oh my goodness, you can actually cut these things down and they'll just grow right back. You can't stop them. They're amazing. So, which is what you want. Yes?
Does it need a trellis or will it wall?
So let's go into the types of the vines. So like this one that I have here, this is the honeysuckle. It's more of a rambler. He'll climb a little bit. He'll kind of cascade and ramble all over the ground. He'll go over retaining walls, drape over riprap. Really good at rambling. Put it by a fence or a trellis, he'll climb a little bit. Sometimes you have to help him at first, and then he'll kind of work his way up himself. But if you have something like this akebia, take a look. The ends actually kind of curl as they grow. They're whipping around like this, and they're looking for something to latch onto, and they'll actually grab onto that trellis and just start climbing up. So they'll climb a lot faster without any help at all. Same thing with let's see here, this one right here. This is a trumpet vine. You can see it's actually got tendrils that it sticks out. This right here is a Virginia creeper, and it's got these tendrils that it sticks out, and it's almost like tentacles, and they're reaching out to grab onto something. They're great at this particular one, Virginia creeper. You'll see it in some of the backwoods of Prescott a lot. They're really great at grabbing on anything rough. They can just kind of, it's almost like a claw. It just kind of loops onto bark, rocks, fences, trellises, whatever, and it just climbs without any help. Does wonderful.
Are there different varieties of the trumpet vine? Because that doesn't look like a vine.
No, not the trumpet vine. This is Virginia creeper.
Oh, I thought you said trumpet vine. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe I did, sorry. This is the Virginia creeper. There are a couple different varieties of it. Some of them have larger leaves than others. The wonderful thing about Virginia creeper, it's a big seller in the fall because it gets fall color. Not many vines do that. This one's going to turn red, and I mean red. So if you love fall color, this is your baby right here. If you need, now again, if you're on one of the newer homes and you've got block walls, trumpet vine. Because then you don't have to worry about trellises. The others need a trellis or a fence to climb up. This actually sticks to a solid wall. So you just put this by the wall and it'll actually adhere to it, kind of like an English ivy. It'll do the same thing. It'll just stick to it, climb right up the block wall and cover it. Again, super fast. Very heat tolerant. Of all the vines here, I'd say this is probably the most heat tolerant, drought tolerant, neglect tolerant. This guy is hot. This is the one that gives the trumpet-shaped flowers all over it in the summer. And You'll see it going up walls of the Harkin Cedar, you know, Pike College, I think it's all their sign. You'll see it by the tennis courts, over on Gurley Street. Very pretty, great grower. And
They're established, they're like a weed.
oh, once they're
Yeah.
established, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
I
a weed.
mean,
It is.
you know, and, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
This is just a wonderful plant to have, especially again, you've got block walls. You know you can go with the trellis, where you get a whole bunch of trellises and put them against the wall, or you can just grab a creeper like this one. It'll stick. Yes. What was that?
Is it evergreen?
This one is not evergreen. If you're looking for evergreen,
Will it survive the winter up here?
yeah, oh yeah, it'll survive the winter. Yeah, definitely.
Do they lose their leaves in the winter?
Most of the vines are going to lose their leaves. This one right here is a semi-evergreen right here. This is again is the akebia, or sometimes called chocolate vine. And this one again prefers a trellis or something to climb up, but even poles. It'll go up those too. Nice narrow poles. This one doesn't really always lose its leaves in the winter. It has to get really frigid cold for a long time for it to lose its leaves, and then if it does, it grows them back pretty soon again. So we call it a semi-evergreen, meaning most of the time it's going to keep its leaves through the winter, at least through most of the winter. So if you're wanting to do that, the other one, just a sec, the other one would be the Hall's honeysuckle. There's several different varieties of honeysuckle. Most of them will lose their leaves during the winter. This one is the exception. It's called Hall's. It's the one with the yellow and white flowers. This is the one that keeps leaves all the way through the winter. Yes?
We're going to be having a concrete wall about 4 feet high,
Mhm.
and then above that we're going to have wrought iron fencing.
Okay.
Is there one kind of vine versus another one for those two combinations for it to spread and climb?
So she's going to have a low wall with wrought iron above it. Some of the houses in Prescott Lakes have that, where it's a low wall with a wrought iron fence on top of it. Which vines would work best for that? Pretty much almost any of them, because it's a low wall. They'll do pretty good about just climbing up on it, and they'll climb on the fence. Even the honeysuckle will just kind of climb on itself if it's not climbing on the fence itself. It's pretty good about doing that. I'd say any of these would be just fine, really. Just find the one you like to look up. Yes?
You mentioned as you're kind of going through, which ones would do well on a steep bank, or like come down over and touch the bank?
You could actually put any of them on a steep bank. So if you have, say, a steep bank, a slope, or riprap, you can put any of these on there. If they have nothing to climb on, they'll just trail down the side. They will. And then you can also put them on the bottom if they're a climber, like a trumpet creeper. It depends on whether your house is on the bottom or the top where you need to plant. If you're going to plant on the bottom, a lot of these, like the Virginia creeper, the trumpet vine, they'll just climb up that bank for you. So you can go either way. Some people like to stagger them up and down if the wall just looks really plain, they'll just kind of stagger them through there. It's just up to you.
Yeah, I have Cotoneaster that is cascading down a wall at least 3 feet.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful.
Yeah, I've actually seen a few cases of Cotoneaster just cascading. The Cotoneaster is a ground cover. It's not a climber. This is one here. It's not a climber. This is the ground cover. Any of the ground covers will trail over a wall or cascade down riprap, and just like the vines will. So the Cotoneaster is lovely that way, and fast growing and gets big enough. So if you have a wall that you want to be able to see even from a distance, go with a nice thick Cotoneaster and it'll just cascade over beautifully. Very good at that. Another one that's really good, rosemary. There's a few different types of rosemary. Okay, I'll get mixed up here. Get myself wrapped up in my microphone. This right here is a trailing rosemary. Trailing rosemary gets real thick, covers the ground. If you put it on a retaining wall, it cascades over beautifully. It looks like a waterfall. It's covered in blue flowers every spring and fall. So during those 2 cool seasons, it's covered in these blue flowers. Fragrant, hardy, drought tolerant, low water user. Just you can practically forget that it's there. It's just a great plant because of how tough it is, and at the same time how beautiful it is. This is evergreen, so this is something, if you're looking for something that's going to just look beautiful year round, this is going to be your guy. Cotoneaster as well, evergreen, yes.
Does that, I've seen a lot of rosemary on slopes that gets very woody, and does that do that?
Yes, over time it does get kind of woody on the inside, but yes.
Just out of curiosity, how far apart would you plant like that size?
How far apart would you plant your ground covers? Well, the easy answer is you can look at the tag and see how big it's going to get. However, if you want to plant them closer together so that it fills in faster, you can do that. Again, most of your ground covers are going to put on a good 8 feet at least. So here, that's about 8 feet wide approximately. So you can put them, 8 feet in between. If you want them to fill in faster and you want to go more like 5 feet, you can do that. That's fine. Again, a lot of these are really fast growing, so you don't need to go and put them a couple feet apart. That's just unnecessary. You don't need to crowd them that much. If you're looking for something that you can, you don't want it woody. You brought up, sometimes they're kind of woody. If you need something less woody, something that you can even walk on once in a while, there are definitely plenty of choices for that. Grab a few of these. Or something that just won't get in the way in case you need to get to an electrical box or basement door or something once in a while. So there's a few things that are not woody that do great as ground covers. Like this one is stonecrop. It's actually a kind of succulent plant. Very, very soft. I mean, you'll crush it a little bit when you walk on it, but it'll grow back so fast you'll never know.
What's it called?
This one's stonecrop. Comes in a few different varieties. I've got 2 varieties right here. You can see how different they look. And you can even mix and match. That way you have multicolors. So this one is kind of a lime green, while this one is kind of a red color. And there's a lot of other types as well. And they all look very, very different.
Will those spread?
Yes, they will spread.
Do they die down?
In fact, if you put them on gravel, they'll spread over the gravel to a certain extent. But if you put them in the ground without gravel underneath them so that they can make contact with the soil, many ground covers, including these, will eventually start sending down roots from there. And it'll help them spread even more.
Are these all full sun?
Yes, everything I've talked about so far has been full sun except for the ones I specifically said are shade. Yes. If you're looking for soft ground covers, herbs, actually, a lot of the herbs like oregano. I've got 2 kinds of oregano here. This one's Italian. This one is golden. Kind of comes out lime green when it first grows out. So these are excellent. And smell wonderful. Do double time. So you've also got your herb garden and your ground cover. And for a lot of us, it's like, ooh, I don't have space for both the landscape and the veggie garden and the herb garden, and you're wondering, oh, I just wish I had more space. You can actually use herbs and some types of fruits and vegetables in your regular landscape. So you can actually use your oregano and your thyme as ground covers. In fact, we make thyme lawns sometimes. If you get the creeping thyme, it's so low growing. There's a few different kinds that are so low growing and so even when they grow that it looks like a lawn. And just beautiful. You can walk on it. It'll take light traffic, no problem at all. Grows very quickly. Very, very quickly. This is a great year. So again, if you need a vine, but you're also thinking, oh, I would love to be able to put some fruit or veggies or something useful in my very small space, a grape or strawberries will do that for you. Strawberries make a wonderful ground cover, and they love sun. And then the grapes, again, sun lovers, do give them a trellis or something to climb on. And they will just grow like you would not believe every summer. Yes.
Rabbits. On everything you're showing us, are rabbits going to be drawn to these, or? How did we handle a rabbit problem?
So, animals have been a big problem this year, worse than ever. So you have two ways to go with that. Evergreens are less attractive to them. They just don't taste that great. You have to be pretty desperate to nibble on an evergreen. This right here is actually a ground cover manzanita. Yeah, strange, isn't it? We're used to thinking of that big bush. Yeah, this is actually a manzanita ground cover. And so this one is really pretty. It is evergreen. And so like other manzanita, this is resistant to animals. If you're having rabbits and other things attacking, this would be a good one.
How big is that one yet?
This one? Let's see. About 12 inches tall or less. And eventually, if you give it enough time, it can do over 10 feet in width. Very, very wide. Yeah. This is a creeping germander, again evergreen in most places. Usually pretty animal resistant. And then if you also go with, say, the herbs again. Now these do go dormant in the winter. They'll actually die off and then they'll just kind of mow them back, and at the end of winter they'll grow right back. So these are deciduous, but because they're so herby and pungent, they have strong flavor, the animals don't like them. So if you're having issues with rabbits and other things, eating herbs are another great way to go. The cotoneaster is evergreen. The rosemary is both evergreen and an herb, so it does wonderful against animals. Some of the vines tend to just not get eaten that much, like the Virginia creeper. They don't really bother it. Trumpet creeper, they just don't really get into it that much. Even though they're not evergreen, they just don't seem to be very tasty to the animals. So you can definitely go with those. The junipers do wonderful. We've got two kinds of junipers here. These are ground covers. Junipers are they're both evergreen, and again, they're also kind of herby. And so animals tend to leave them alone, and they're also very prickly. If you actually try to squeeze them, they can be a little on the prickly side. So they're not real pleasant to the animals. They come in a lot of varieties, lots and lots of varieties. This one is one of the golden types. You can see the new growth comes out yellow. So something different than green. I know a lot of you just say, oh, I want something not green. What if you got red, purple, yellow, something? So there's plenty of choices in the yellows with the ground covers. This one right here is a nandina. Normally you think of a nandina or heavenly bamboo as a bush. This variety is actually a spreader. Stays real low, about a foot, foot and a half at the most, and just spreads through suckers. So if you've got a big area you need to fill, these do really great, and they get a lot of color in them, especially in the spring and the winter. In the springtime, the new growth comes out with reds and other colors, and then in the winter time, all the foliage just starts to turn to those reds. And it is truly. Yes.
Back to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of safety issue, like being away from the house for fire prevention or something?
Okay, so the question is, what is the safety issue with fire? Most of the time, junipers are not like some evergreens, like say pines and what's the other one? Spruces. They tend to catch fire and just burn and burn and burn. Junipers are actually the other way around. They don't burn easily. It takes a pretty hot fire to get them started. So if you're looking for an evergreen that is less prone to burning, that's lower in those burnable resins, juniper will be your friend. So in good years, it's almost impossible to catch.
The manzanita, does it have the red stem? Like
It,
a manzanita?
it does, but she's asking if this manzanita has the red stems. If you look close, it does have the red stems, but it's not like that red bark. It doesn't get that woody red bark that you see on the regular manzanita.
Manzanita, I have a bush kind, but if it does catch fire, it burns white hot. Would that do?
This one, I'm not sure how it is. We'd have to do a little research and find out whether this one would be considered fire-wise or not. That I couldn't really tell you off the top of my head, sorry. But it's a good question. It's becoming more and more of a concern how to fire-wise these days. Yes? I would actually do it more at the end of winter. It's better to cut everything back at the end of winter. She was asking, should you cut them back in fall before it snows? I would actually do it after the freezes are starting to come to an end. Yeah, same way with grass. Pretty much the same with everything in a cold climate. You'll find that everything just does better if you cut it after the winter rather than before. So, I mean, it's okay if you're still getting frost and everything, but generally about February is when we start going through, February, March, sometimes even January if it's real warm. Just kind of go through your entire yard and start doing all your cutting, trimming, pruning, all of that. So, yeah, the herbs will go dormant, depending on what kind of winter we'll have. It may take them a while to fully lose all their leaves if it's one of those late winters. But yeah, just go ahead and with the things like oregano and thyme, you can actually mow it. If you've got a big space of it, you can actually pull out that old lawnmower that you never use anymore and just mow the whole thing just like that. So you can actually do it that way. So try not to cut up all the roots, if you're say using a weed whacker, try to keep it high. But yeah, absolutely. We have planted thyme lawns, as I had said before, and oregano is another one that does wonderful. What else haven't I played with yet? Yes.
When you water them, I can never figure out or find really accurate information. Where's their root system? Is it like, like the tree, you have a drip line. So does their roots go just all the way along?
The roots actually can spread out quite a bit, but they won't get real thick and woody, as much as, say, a tree. So I would say don't water right up against the trunk. That goes for almost anything, really. Yeah, I would say if you're, and it kind of depends on where it's located and where you're able to water, but I would say try to get at least a foot or two from the trunk, and you should be fine with that, and it'll figure it out from there. Yeah, the roots they can spread, but they tend to spread according to what the plant is doing. Yes?
With most of these ground covers, do we need to amend the soil when we plant them, or can they handle our alkaline or whatever kind of soil we have here?
You do want to amend the soil regardless of what you're planting, to be honest. Even if you're planting a cactus, I would still tell you to amend the soil, simply because if you didn't, there's a danger that as the soil dries, it might shrink back from the root ball, and then you can't water it again. So I would say always amend your soil. We do have tough clay soils. We have high alkalinity, so yes, by all means, acidify, feed. We have dead soil. There's no nitrogen whatsoever in our soil, none. So please fertilize. These things are going to put on feet of growth. When they're well established, they will grow like you will not believe. So that's a lot of growth to put on without any nourishment. So please fertilize. You'll also find that they bloom a lot more. If you've got a vine that isn't blooming, probably just needs to be fertilized. So very important with those.
If you put a vine on a block wall, how far away if you're going to plant trees, how far away so the vine doesn't grab the tree?
If you're going to plant on a block wall and you don't want it to grab onto your trees, how far away do you get it from the trees? Well, to be honest, some of these vines can do 20 feet.
You mean they'll just jump through the air?
But no, they're not pretty good at jumping through the air. So if it's close enough where it could reach up and get to the tree, you may have to trim either the tree or the vine or both to keep it off the tree. If there's a good enough space that they can't quite reach, then you're probably okay.
So are they going to grab from the ground?
If they're close enough to the tree where they could ramble along the ground and climb up the trunk, then yes. So again, this would just come to, if you see that one of the runners is kind of running along the ground looking for something to climb on, either take it and show it where the wall is, or or clip it off. And don't be afraid to trim. These things keep growing so much you can't hurt it, so do not be afraid to get the scissors out and trim it off. Let's see, anyone else? Yes?
Is there any other reason why your vines wouldn't bloom? Like if you're fertilizing and you're...
Yes. So if your vines aren't blooming and you're fertilizing, you know you're fertilizing, and let's say that we can also rule out water, that they're not getting under or over water. So we got those two basics down. What could be wrong? You can look at alkalinity. Again, our soil and our water is very alkaline. And when the pH of the soil and water are too high, it keeps the plant from being able to absorb the fertilizer properly. So bringing that pH down can help with that very great deal. So I would say make sure you're using an acidic fertilizer. Maybe put down sulfur once a year. That right there can fix your problem. Lack of light is another one. If you've got a lot of shade in your area, you've got a lot of lack of light, that will keep anything from blooming. So there are other things you can look at, yes, absolutely. Remember again, vines, even when they're growing upright, they sometimes have a kind of a big belly that shades the ground, so be careful not to overwater. But they do need good deep soakings because they are putting on a lot of growth.
Do you need an irrigation system then?
Do you want them on the irrigation system? Probably, but if you've got that system coming on really frequently, say, 2-3 times a week, just kind of watch out. You might see less blooming, mildew, things like that, because they are so thick. So just kind of be careful. They don't really do well on frequent watering. Same with the ground covers. Again, they're growing right on the ground, so if you do it frequent watering, the surface of the soil is always wet, you can start seeing some rot and some trouble in your ground covers. Yeah.
The irrigation system isn't necessary though.
I would say, yeah, you would want to irrigate them. Of course, it depends on which kinds you have, how often they really need it. But a once a week watering will typically make anything happy. If you do have a real low water plant, like say the rosemary or the trumpet creeper, especially when they're well established, a lot of times you can go much less. It just depends on how clay is your soil, because clay really retains water better, and what kind of plant did you plant.
And how long would you put the irrigation system on? You're saying once a week.
Depending on how many emitters you're putting on your plants, you're probably looking at anywhere between 1 and 3 hours for an irrigation system. That's just from
gallons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how many?
So irrigation, how long do you run it? It's kind of an equation between how many gallons are being emitted through the emitters per hour, and then how long you run the timer. So that you can either put on more emitters, you can run it for a longer time.
1 gallon on it.
Yeah, if it doesn't have very big emitters and not very many, then I would say run it for a longer time, or you can put on more emitters. So, yeah, like it's a bigger. Yes.
On the back of our business card.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ken.
How long does it take these to get a stamp to be more drought tolerant,
Generally, anything will really be well established at about 2 years, and at that point, you'll see you'll want to kind of baby them that first year, and then generally the second year, you're looking at it once a week watering, and then again, depending on which plant you planted and what you're trying to get out of it. For example, if it's got to make fruit, then I would say stick with your once a week. But some plants, definitely after year 2, you can really start petering off on that water a great bit. There are some things that I would only water every few weeks, sometimes even less. Maybe I would just do every few weeks during the summertime, and during the cool seasons, do it hardly ever, if at all. There are some things that I could definitely do that with. Things like silver lace vine and trumpet vine and rosemary easily go that route. I would, kind of keep an eye on them for the first 2 years, make sure they're establishing well. And then for the irrigation, we do have on the back of all of our business cards, there's actually a little irrigation chart there.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And we do have an irrigation class coming up too. Really useful. The newcomers class will also go over a lot of watering.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have any idea when?
Newcomers,
I don't remember the dates, but we've got
newcomers is next week,
Oh, okay.
next Saturday.
Next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the newcomers class, watering is one of our biggest issues in this area. It really, truly is. It's that if you can get that down, probably 90% of your problems will disappear. I'd say more problems than anything else come from incorrect watering. So the newcomers class will go over that. And the irrigation class tends to be more about the technical stuff. That we'll go over how you want to water a little bit, but we'll really go into how to either build or maintain the irrigation system itself. So a little more of the technical stuff. So those are two classes I recommend to everybody. If you get those two down, oh my goodness, you'll just feel like you're ready to tackle the world. So thanks, Ken. All right. Oh, yes.
Do ground cover with a low-growing native grass.
Okay.
Do you have any idea about
Do a ground cover with a low-growing native grass. Absolutely. We carry seed for that. It's actually for people who don't want a lawn, just want a field, just a natural field. And the grass blend contains grasses that stay within 6 to 12 inches. You're not getting those real tall 2-3 foot grasses that would be hard to walk through. So if you're looking for that, definitely we have that down there in the store. And then drought tolerant, deep rooted grasses for that purpose, so that you don't have to worry about them. I would say you'll water them to get them established, and you can leave them to nature. And if you do that, then what will happen is they'll do exactly what the native grasses in our natural fields will do. They'll green up in the spring when we get those spring rains, and then they'll kind of turn brown in the May, June time, and then we start getting monsoon and they green up again. They're not dead; they just kind of go dormant, and you'll see they'll come up again during the monsoon. So you'll see them do that ebb and flow, just like the natural fields do. Same thing. Yes, absolutely. I actually don't mind grasses. I think they get kind of a bad rap for being water hogs, and really grass is actually pretty good on water. It's just that when we grow grass, it tends to cover such a large area that you end up using a lot of water simply because you have a lot of square footage. But really, grass is not bad on water, and when you come to a field rather than a manicured lawn, like I said, you come just letting nature do its thing, and you don't have that problem with using up a lot of your either well water or city water. So yeah, absolutely, grass actually does great. Yes?
Virginia to be great. It never turns red, and I love that.
Okay.
That's a long time.
That's possible. If you have something that should be turning red in the fall, this happens a lot with maples. People will come and say, why isn't my maple turning red? If you have a Virginia creeper that should be turning red in the fall and it's not doing it, it means that you need to look at two things. The first one, are you fertilizing?
It does just sound like it's kind of in the most spot.
Okay.
Not as much as the other.
Okay. So the first thing you would look at is, are you fertilizing? And if you are fertilizing, again, sulfur. Because if it's just not taking up that food, you can fertilize all you want, it doesn't do any good. Yeah. So basically, plants always have that redness in the leaves. It's always there. You can't see it because they're green right now, but that redness is there. And then when the green disappears in the fall, then the red is revealed. If they don't turn red in the fall, that means they've actually been malnourished all this time, and you just couldn't tell until now. Yeah, that's a big plant, so you definitely want to keep feeding it, especially if you're, if that isn't working, then go straight to your sulfur and acidify that soil so it can feed. Yes? When is a good time to apply the sulfur? You can pretty much do it any time, but if you want to get into a regular routine, a lot of people find that early in the year is real good, and then it just has time to really work during some of the crucial months. But there's not a time when you can't necessarily.
What is this little plant that you really like that it recognizes me? Shade, right? The bigger, the blue.
With the blue flowers? Okay. Just let Lithodora. This is the one that gets those little blue flowers.
Okay, and then the one, the bigger one, right here.
This is Pachysandra.
That one, yes, I'm sorry, what's its name?
Pachysandra, and this one gets like a fringe type flower.
Huh,
It'll look like a kind of like a little castle
okay.
during the summertime.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's unusual, but very, very pretty. Especially for areas, if you have an area that tends to stay a little wetter, you know, everybody has a spot where all the water seems to drain into it. It stays too wet, too long, and some plants don't do well. This one you'll find is more tolerant of those conditions. So this is a good one to have. And this is monsoon time, so this is that time when you're discovering where those spots are. And you're wondering what to put in them. So that'll help you out with that. Okay. So, any of the online questions today?
No online, no Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's right. Oh man, we're having issues with our internet. Okay.